Hello everyone, I'm your narrator from Grave Hush, and I'm here to help you unwind tonight. I know many of you use these stories to fall asleep, so before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Now, get cozy, take a deep breath, let your body sink into the stillness. It's time to relax and let the story carry you into sleep. Our first story tonight. Please wait in line. I've been thinking a lot about what I went through that night a couple of years back. I've never had the chance to process it. I think when you go through something traumatic or unusual, you compartmentalize it to the point where it feels like it happened to somebody else. That's what it feels like to me. Back then, I was living in a suburb near Pittsburgh. I was making ends meet, but margins were slim, and the notion of owning my own house felt like a dream at best. I'd been dating a girl for 2 years, looking for the perfect time to propose, but I just couldn't find the right time and place. But my fortunes were about to change. I got offered a promotion at my job. I'd be a shift manager at a large chemical plant in a couple of weeks. But even better, I got an email about something that might be the perfect time and place for me to finally propose. I was subscribed to a newsletter for a particular singer-songwriter that my girlfriend and I both enjoyed. The first thing we'd ever bonded over was music. There was a promotional campaign where there would be a sneak release of tickets to an upcoming tour, and the first 30 in line would be offered backstage passes. I couldn't imagine a better place to pop the question. Maybe I could get a chance to do it on stage if I asked nicely, but it had to be a surprise, so I kept it to myself. I made up an excuse about going to see my brother and packed a camp-out kit to get in line well and early. The newsletter recommended all of those interested to be in line, at least 24 hours ahead of the ticket release. Please be patient and understanding, the email read, and please wait in line. I drove out there early Saturday morning. They'd arranged it as a sort of a pop-up store. It was gonna have all kinds of merch, and by opening day there'd be plenty of people dropping by to get ordinary tickets. But I'd be one of those 30 who got the good ones, come hell or high water. It was awkward getting there though. They'd shut down 3 of the roads for maintenance, making me zigzag between cones and waiting for traffic in opposing lanes. To take a turn, there was an apartment complex nearby, but that had been tented up for fumigation. A couple of nearby stores were shut down after health inspections. All in all, it was just bad timing, and there would be no comforts. But I got a bunch of gear packed. I'd be fine. I had an audiobook, some TV shows, and a lawn chair with a slot for an attachable umbrella. I could sit out there for days if need be. As with most pop-up events, there was no big sign, and the location was closed with metal shutters out front. The only thing that showed that this was the place was a discreet little poster on the side of the door that read, "You made it." The newsletter had mentioned that particular poster. It was all designed in a way to make the release feel exclusive. I got there about 23 hours early, and my heart sank. There were already people in line. Luckily, I only counted 27, but for a short moment, I was ready to throw in the towel. I got to the back of the line, did a second and third count, and breathed a sigh of relief. As long as no one cut in line, I was in the green. So I set up my chair, attached an umbrella to my chair, and got started on the first season of Monk. After a couple of hours, the line had grown to about 50 people before slowing down. Maybe those in the back were hoping people up front would either drop out, or maybe they hoped there'd be extra tickets. The email had mentioned that there might be a couple of extras, but it couldn't be guaranteed. But I was still in the green, so I didn't have to worry all that much. It wasn't an unpleasant place to stay. The building was facing away from the sun, and there wasn't any traffic nearby because all the maintenance. I think the crews had stopped working for the weekend, because there was little to no machine noise. I didn't hear a single jackhammer or concrete mixer, just the ambience of the city and the murmur of the people in line. There was a bit of a tussle up front. This one woman was getting up and talking to people. She was hard to miss. She had this neon green band shirt and blue-colored hair. You could see her from a mile away. She went down the line asking if anyone had any antihistamines, allergy pills. She was having some sort of reaction. Turns out no one had any, so she had to head off to find some. There was a drugstore a couple of blocks away, and the guy next to her promised she could keep her spot. So she walked away, thanking those around her for being so understanding. Thing is, she never came back. Hours later, her spot was still vacant. By dinner time, I kicked up a conversation with the guy next to me. He'd arrived just after I did, so he was still among the first 30. His name was Rodney, and he had this lean metalhead kind of build, arms covered in tattoos, and those kinds of pants with zippers that you can turn into shorts. It didn't look like his kind of venue. I'm surprising my girl, Rodney smiled. She loves this stuff. Same here, I said. I think I might pop the question. Congrats, love to see it. He offered me a Coke, and I took it. He hadn't prepared himself quite like I had, so I offered him a pad to watch some shows while I listened to my audiobook. We shared a couple of stories, some snacks, and added one another to our SOCIAL. I chomped down on a cold burrito for dinner and took a nap. Rodney was on his phone talking to a friend for a bit. The people ahead of me were having a conversation of their own, and I only caught parts of it. They were discussing if there were 30 available tickets in total, or if there were more tickets. Given out to the first 30 people, was there only one ticket per person? Because if all in line wanted 2 or more, that'd be over 60 in total. The email hadn't specified it, so they were a bit worried. I had no idea, but there was no point in arguing about it. We'd see, in about a day, there was this one guy who was a couple of spots ahead of me that had to step out of line. He had a friend coming by to drop off some stuff, so he asked if they could hold his spot for a bit. It'd just be a couple of minutes. I saw him disappear round the corner, doing that I'm in a bit of a hurry kind of jog that polite people do. A couple of minutes passed, then half an hour. After a full hour, he still wasn't back. Isn't that strange? I said to Rodney, 2 people have gone to get something, and none came back. Sure, yeah, strange, he nodded. But some people just say those things to get an excuse to leave. It's embarrassing to say you're bored, you know, I guess. It's just strange. I work at the hospital, he said. I'm an anesthesiologist. I know what people who crack under pressure looks like. They always shuffle away with a convenient excuse. You sure that's it? I asked. Nah, but I got no other explanation. Fair enough. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sounds of the city lowered to a mumble. Cars gave way to people walking their dogs, and in this particular neighborhood, there was a lot of those. There were a couple more people who got out of line and walked away, not to return. We were still well over 40 though, but I think some got cold feet as the city got dark. A couple of light posts from a nearby street cast long shadows across the pavement. I was having a nap when Rodney poked me. He looked confused. Some folks in the back are saying we're in the wrong line. They're opening some name brand store. There ain't no ticket sales. You shitting me? I scoffed. You can't be serious. A guy 3 steps ahead looked back. This ain't no store opening, he called back. It's an autograph. Signing that kicked up a murmur. All of a sudden, the entire line was talking. There was some confusion about what we were actually doing out there. A lot of people were there for tickets, but for different artists. Some were there for a shop, opening, an autograph signing, or a giveaway. A couple of phones were passed around and shown, so we could compare emails. All emails were from different accounts, seemingly official enough to get past the spam filters. They all advertised different things, but they ended with the same line: please be patient and understanding, and please wait in line. Asterisk, asterisk, it became readily apparent that no one had the faintest idea what this opening actually was. A couple of folks just got up and left. Finally, the guy at the very front stepped out of line. I'm not sticking around for some fucking scam, he spat. I'm going home, you should too. A couple more people packed up but hadn't decided what to do. I was a bit on the fence about it. But as I watched that first man round the corner, I figured there'd been some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe they were doing several promotions at once. I heard his voice. He sounded surprised and a little angry. What is this? Then he screamed. A blood-curdling, ear-bleeding scream. It got quiet. Everyone looked at one another, trying to find an answer to what was going on. I got out of my chair to get a better look, but Rodney put his hand on my arm. Hold on, he said, lowering his voice. Don't go, we should call someone. He agreed, but we could see other people were already calling for help. The man from the front of the line never returned. There was someone in the back who called for help. A few people walked down the road to see if everyone was okay, but they never returned either. Asterisk, asterisk, a patrol vehicle came by about 20 minutes later. 2 police officers walked up, asking questions. Everyone said the same thing. A man had stepped away, and it sounded like he got hurt. The officers did a sweep of the road, and when they came back around, they shrugged it off. There's nothing here, they said. You're sure he didn't just call out to a friend? There were a lot of raised voices at that, but what could we say? It wasn't illegal to step out of line and not come back. There was no blood or sign of a struggle. Maybe we hadn't heard what we thought we heard, but people were raising other issues, like the emails we'd been sent. It all seemed like a plot to trick us, that the officers had something to say about. No, it's legit, one said. We were informed that there'd be people waiting in line for some kind of event. They had no idea what the promotion was for though, and even if they did, they couldn't disclose it. It was all arranged by an event promoter who'd in turn been hired by someone else. All in all, there was nothing they could do but to wish us the best of luck and be on their way. As they left, I noticed them meeting up with someone walking their dog at the end of the street. They shook hands, looked at us, and went their separate ways. Rodney and I stayed up late. We decided we'd take turns sleeping just to make sure no one took our things. I took the first shift. The line had whittled down to about 30 people by then. There'd been a lot of people trickling out after the uncertainty of what this was supposed to be. Of course, none of them came back. I didn't hear anything else, but there was this rising unease that there was something inherently dangerous about stepping away. I could hear a couple of people talking about it. That is, until a woman further back had enough. She'd been sitting quietly for a while, listening to people talk over her. It's not a big deal, she groaned. Look, I'll walk one lap around the building. I'll leave my purse here, so you know I'll be back, all right. Maybe she was tired or frustrated. Maybe she wanted to prove a point. She stepped out of line and rounded the corner with a huff. Judging by the size of the building, it ought to take her a couple of minutes at a brisk walking speed. But as those minutes dragged on into half an hour, it was clear she wasn't coming back. She'd left everything behind, so it was clear this wasn't voluntary. Something had kept her from coming back. No one would willingly leave behind their identification, credit cards, or phone. A couple of people discussed leaving as a group. Someone mentioned leaving while being on a phone call, to report back as they went. But no one wanted to take the risk. We didn't know what was going on, and no one was eager to put themselves on the line. Instead, we waited, speculated, and murmured back and forth about what might be going on. Was it a trafficking thing, gang-related, or was this whole thing just a big misunderstanding? I woke up Rodney around midnight and leaned back in my chair. I told him about the woman leaving her things behind, and I could see something settle on his brow. It was a strange position to be in. We were either completely fine or in incredible danger. But which was it? Which made more sense? I had a nervous sleep. No dreams, just a stream of thoughts. I kept waking up for the dumbest reasons. A car playing loud music a couple streets down. A barking dog. Someone throwing away a bunch of glass bottles. Just everyday city noise. Rodney had slumped against the wall, chewing on some licorice. When he noticed me watching, he pointed down the street. They keep coming back around. Who? I asked. Not sure. Some guy walking his dog every 30 minutes or so. The same guy? I don't know. Maybe. We kept our eyes on the street, and just like he said, a man with a dog passed by. He was wearing a large coat and a baseball cap, and the dog was one of the larger breeds. Possibly a Saint Bernard, or some kind of sheepdog. Every 30 minutes, Rodney reiterated. I don't think he's walking his dog, so what's he doing then? Rodney shook his head and took another bite of licorice. Patrolling, it was the middle of the night when the police came back. 2 officers, same as before, walked down the line with an audible sigh. Someone called again, they said. What's going on? A young man got up and pointed at the woman who'd left her things behind. The police scooped it up, checked it, and promised to take it back to the station. As they were about to leave, the young man asked if they could escort him to his car. They agreed. As he left, he looked back at the rest of us, holding up his phone. A woman he'd been sitting next to held up her phone in response. I'll stay on the line till I get home, he called out. I'll keep you updated. It seemed to go well enough, but as they rounded the corner at the end of the street, I noticed one of the officers looking to the left and raising his hand, as if waving at someone just off to the side. We all looked at the woman with the phone. She was hunched over, cradling it with both hands, listening through wireless earpieces. She'd say something occasionally, like a quiet yes, I'm still here, or are you okay? Then, after a couple of minutes, her eyes went wide. Hello, she said. Dan, are you there? There was no response. I could see the tears pool in her eyes as her hand started to shake. He'd promised to stay on the line. Something must have gone wrong. They're picking us off, muttered Rodney. Someone is picking us off. But why? I whispered back. What's the point? Think about it, he said. This whole block is basically shut down. Road work, maintenance, fumigation, renovations. It's just us out here. But why us? Why now? There's gotta be a reason. Everyone was awake by then. We tried to figure out if we all had something in common. We all looked different, and we were all different ages. We were there for different reasons, and we lived in different parts of town. There was nothing readily apparent that we had in common. Dan works at a bottling plant. The woman with the phone added, I'm in retail. Others joined in. One was an airline pilot. Another was a bodyguard, a firefighter, a translator. All very different people in very different lines of work. However, we had one thing in common. We all had access to something that Rodney had access to pretty much whatever at the hospital. The woman working retail had access to influential private clients. The firefighter had control over who had what shift and who would respond to what call. The translator could listen in on privileged information. I was no different. I was about to become shift manager at the plant. I could choose what and who went where and when. Is that it? Rodney said. Is that what we're here for? But what's the point of taking us out? I asked. This isn't hurting anyone but us. The man walking his dog was back for another round, but now it looked like he'd slowed down a bit. As Rodney talked, I saw him stop at the end of the street, giving us a long look, and his dog looked too. Somewhere around 3 a.m., a whole group of people got up from the back of the line. The idea was clear. They were going to rush out of there. Others protested, saying they could call people over to come help. If we all call someone, we can make a crowd. A man called out, we can. Leave as a crowd, and we'll be fine. No, we have to spread out. Someone else said, we go different ways, and we go fast. Some of us are bound to get out. Rodney got up too, but his voice drowned in the crowd. Things were getting heated, and people were pushing one another. Angry fingers were being pointed. Phrases were repeated over and over and over. The argument was quickly turning into a shouting contest. Asterisk, asterisk. There's at least 8 people patrolling, Rodney tried to say. I've counted. There's at least 8. At least 8. But no one listened. And as push came to shove, the group from the back of the line spread out and ran into the night. Rodney slouched back down against the wall, breathing heavily. We all held our breaths, listening. We could hear footsteps running down different alleyways. It started with a crash, like someone taking a tumble into a trash container. Then, one pair of footsteps stopped. Not long after, another stopped. And from a far-off corner, I heard this barking, a loud, growling bark. No, someone pleaded. No, no, no. There was no screaming, no gunshots. All the sounds just stopped, and no one came back. A guy from the back of the line called out to them, but got no answer. We were down to about 20 people. Some were calling home. Others were calling the police, but they weren't about to come back here for a third time. One called a taxi, but they couldn't find a place to park, so they had to stop at an adjacent street, which we couldn't get. 2. There was also this one woman with a face tattoo that asked to borrow a phone. Rodney handed over his. I'm getting my guys down here, she said. You'll see, I'm done. She made a call, shouting angrily for a couple of minutes. After the person on the other end finally seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, Rodney got his phone back. About 20 or so minutes later, 6 very tired men came wandering down the street. I could see the outline of holsters inside their cheap jackets. We're going, the tattooed woman called out. Y'all can come if you want. A couple of people got up. I looked at Rodney, but he shook his head. "Suit yourself," she continued. "We're leaving." We watched them walk away and round the corner. I heard them starting a car and putting it in gear. There was music playing, something loud with a thumping bass. It sounded like they were about to drive away when I heard a bark. But it wasn't just a bark. It was more like a growling cough dot than a gunshot, then another. The sound bounced against the walls, ringing out over the city. I saw a couple of lights turn on in distant buildings. Then all was quiet again. No one wanted to go look. Some people screamed at nearby houses, hoping for someone to open a window and look our way. No one did. The line itself was in complete disarray by then. People were packing and unpacking, pacing back and forth, hoping some opportunity would show itself. I wasn't immune to it, but I tried to stay calm. Rodney helped a lot. He was a lot more calculated than I'd imagined when I first saw him. He counted the people walking by. He measured the dogs. He listened for repeating sounds. My mind was tired, but my heart kept my eyes open and frantic. "I don't get this one thing," I said. "There's a timeline." "What do you mean?" he asked. "They gave us a time this would open," I continued. "If they're just going to keep us here until they've picked us off, why would they give us an endpoint? There's got to be something to it," he said. "Some reason for this specific place and this time. And what happens when it opens?" We looked at one another. Whatever was going on, there couldn't be anything good in there. Rodney brought up the idea of breaking into the place we'd been lining up for. A couple of folks were on board, but the front gates were barred shut, and the personnel entrance was on the back of the building. That kicked up all previous arguments about calling for help, or moving as a group, or running like panicked animals into the night. We tried to bend a piece of rebar into a makeshift crowbar, but we couldn't get it to work. The place was locked down hard, and we hadn't brought anything to break through. We couldn't do it. A couple of people thought about collecting jackets and making a line so we could pull them back if need be. The problem was, no one wanted to volunteer. "Nothing happens until we're out of sight," someone said. "As long as we're within view, nothing happens. So someone can go to the end of the street, look around the corner, and come back." We had a volunteer for that. A large guy in his early 40s. He brushed off our worries, grabbed his backpack, and went to the end of the street. We could see him the whole time as he called back to us. "There's a car here," he yelled. "The door's open. There's no one here." "Can you see anything?" Rodney called out. "Nothing," he said. "Not a soul." He turned to go back to us when he stopped. He looked to the side. There was a hint of doubt there. Rodney peered up at me, then back at the man. "I think the patrol's coming round," he said. "Any moment now." Suddenly, the man started running back to us. By the time he reached us, 3 of us were up on their feet to catch him and slow him down. He was panting like he was having an episode. We looked back towards the street, where a person walking his dog had stopped to look at us. "That's no dog," the man wheezed. "I don't know what that is, but it's no dog." For a couple of seconds, we all just stared at the stranger. There really was something unusual about that dog. Its back legs had a curious shape, and there was a shine to the eyes that I hadn't noticed before, almost blue. A couple more people would crack in the following hour. One just straight rushed down the road. Another tried to leave, but was held back by the others. A couple tried to call people for help, or to have someone escort them to their car, but nothing came of it. One guy kept spamming the police over and over, yelling at the operator that if they were that upset with him, they were free to come down and arrest him at any time. By dawn, there were less than 20 of us still waiting in line. It was about 6 a.m. when I saw someone coming down the road, a woman with blue-colored hair and a neon green band shirt. I poked Rodney. We recognized her. She'd been the first one to leave, the one who went to get allergy medication. She came back, I said. You sure? Rodney asked. You sure that's her? Positive, I said. Same clothes and everything. She waved at us. She was smiling and a bit bouncy, like she'd had a good night's sleep. In comparison, the rest of us were nervous wrecks. I heard there was trouble, she said. I'm sure it was a misunderstanding. What happened? I asked. Nothing happened, she insisted. Pills made me sleepy, so I went home. I just came to get my things, see what's going on. I wasn't buying it, and by the looks of Rodney, he wasn't either. Others didn't seem all that sure, but a couple seemed to relax their shoulders a bit. Despite my reservations, she got a lot of people up on their feet. Maybe they really wanted to believe that it was all just a big misunderstanding. And yeah, it was convincing. She'd come back, after all. But maybe she was some kind of plant. Or maybe it was just someone who sort of looked like her. About half of all the people who remained joined her. They left together, giving the rest of us a tired wave goodbye. Some broke down in tears. There was this one woman whose face has burned into my mind. She was completely beside herself, shaking like a dry leaf in the wind. I'm scared, okay, she cried. I'm scared. I don't understand what's going on. I just want to go home. She was assured and hugged and led by the hand. And slowly but surely, they all wandered off down the street, and none would return. About an hour later, there were less than 10 of us left. Rodney shook his head as he looked from side to side. No patrols, he said. They've missed it 2 times. You think we can go? I asked. No, he said. Something's up. He shook his head as we looked down the road, only to see someone approaching. It was one of the people who'd been walking their dog. Except now, they weren't just passing by. They were stopping at the end of the street. A couple more joined, blocking off the other exits. One by one, they bent down and let their dogs off their leash. I looked at Rodney. For the first time, he looked scared. I could see his chest rising and falling with little claustrophobic breaths. We were being closed in on from all sides. They've fanned us out, he whispered. They outnumber us. What the fuck do we do? I whispered back. He got up, and I followed. Others were taking notice as well. But as we began to spread out, we could see the approaching people moving to intercept. Then the barking. I'll never forget the moment the dogs stepped out of the shade of the surrounding buildings. They looked almost completely black in the shadows, but they remained equally black when they stepped into the morning light. They had this ink-black slick skin. Their back feet looked like something from a bird, and the entire body was hunched over on all fours. It was more humanoid than I'd thought, and as they got closer, they stretched out. The smaller of them, at full length, was at least 6'7". One of them looked my way with a shark-like grin, scratching the pavement like an eager dog with long, pointed claws. I looked back at Rodney a final time, and in a split-second realization, all hell broke loose. Someone made a run for it, only to be tackled to the ground. One of the dogs got them by the neck and bit down hard with a sickening snap. One guy tried to climb a light post, hoping he could get up to a window of a nearby building. 2 more creatures tore down the light post, breaking it with a snap as he came tumbling to the ground. They were picking us off one by one, killing us, feeding on us. A couple had time to scream for help, but the creatures targeted whoever made noise first. The 40-something-year-old man who'd gone out to the street earlier was tackled face first into the pavement and had those razor-sharp teeth dug into the back of his neck. My mouth tasted salt as morbid death smells crept up my nose. We didn't stand a chance. There were at least 12 of them, and they knew what they were doing. Rodney and I stayed by the wall, trying to make ourselves as small as possible. I got a good look at some of the dog walkers. A couple of them were complete strangers, but a couple of them I recognized from earlier. They'd been in line, just like me and Rodney. Maybe they'd been plants, or something else entirely. Asterisk, asterisk, the creatures were feasting. One of the handlers went up to the locked building and rolled it open as one of them walked up to me and Rodney. He looked us up and down as one of the creatures settled down by his side, snarling and drooling, starved and ready to pounce. The man adjusted his glasses, peering out from under his baseball cap. "We got any hatches left?" he called out. The building opened. I couldn't see what was inside from my angle, being pushed up against the wall. "All done," someone responded. "Got them all." The man looking at me and Rodney was maybe 30 years old, with a fashionable beard, simple square glasses. I couldn't have picked him out of a crowd. He looked down at the dark creature and adjusted his nondescript baseball cap. "Which one you want?" he asked. "Which did you dream of?" I felt something to my right. Rodney reached out and grabbed my hand, not because we were making a break for it, or to try some last-minute master plan. He was just scared, and when you're scared, you want to hold someone's hand. So he held mine. The creature looked us over. A hint of blue reflected at us from its deep eyes. We fumbled for the right words to say, some plea, some brilliant, last-minute monologue, something to appeal to their sense of kindness and humanity. But the stranger with the glasses didn't move a muscle. He might as well have been shopping for groceries. Asterisk, asterisk, and with that, the creature growled. It had decided. It pounced on Rodney. I held his hand for as long as I could. I didn't look. I remember the sensation of screaming, but I don't remember the sound. My throat turned raw. The muscles in Rodney's hand tightened, then fell limp. The man with the glasses took a step forward, shushing the creature. There, he said. "It's okay. Dream well. Eat bone crunching, sinew snapping, meat, and the smell of hot iron." I closed my eyes so hard my skull ached. There was noise all around me. I didn't hear most of it, as I could barely make out anything over the sound of my own heart. There was biting and ripping, interlaced with the most casual-sounding conversation. "You got the shells?" someone asked. "No need. We're torching. You sure?" "It's clear. We got a firefighter." I looked up. A couple creatures began to look different as they ate. Some had brighter skin. Some were shorter, fatter. I heard clattering as their claws fell off their fingers, bones snapping as their legs straightened. Then the man with the glasses clapped, his hands at me. "Hey," he said. "You can go. What you can go," he repeated. "We're done." I got up off the ground and cleared my eyes. A couple of people looked my way, and I could tell they weren't entirely convinced. Some were armed. I recognized one of them as the woman with the face tattoo. "You're letting me go, sure," he said. "We got a full brood. We don't need you." "You can't kill people and walk away," I whispered. You can't do that." He shrugged at me like I'd asked him what the time was. I stepped back, and no one followed me. I glanced at the creature gnawing on Rodney, only to see that it had started to gain his features, his face, his gangly arms, and all the while the man with the glasses calmly shushed it and stroked its back. The others were setting fire to the building using a can of gasoline and a strip of newspaper. I only saw a brief glance of the inside. Black rock-like fragments littered the floor. Strange organic formations stuck to the wall in batches of 3 to 6. When he noticed I wasn't leaving, the man with the glasses casually waved a pistol at me. Not to shoot me, but to show that he had it. "Go on now," he said, and as the fire flared up, I stepped around the corner, and I didn't return. I came home in tears. I remember breaking down in the hallway, trying to explain everything all at once to my girlfriend. I told her about the tickets, and the plans I'd made, and the people I'd met, and the dogs, and the handlers. All of it. I tried to show her Rodney's socials, and as I did, I noticed he was posting. My heart skipped a beat. "Long night," the post said. It was just a selfie, posted 10 minutes earlier. He looked fine, healthy, even. But there was a little blue tint to his eyes that wasn't there before. No people went missing that night. Everyone came home, eventually, and from what I've read, there haven't been any incidents. Everything just keeps going like normal, like nothing happened. So who can I call? What can I even say? You can't report a person not being properly killed to the police. I even texted Rodney once, and he responded like it was no big deal. "I just went home," he said. "I'm fine. We should hang out sometime." I haven't agreed to it. I don't think I can. I don't even know what to think anymore. About a week or so after all this went down, I got a card, an apology card, with a sad blue sunflower on the front. Inside was a handwritten note. "Sorry for the inconvenience," it read. There were 2 tickets to the concert. Backstage passes. I ended up going. I proposed. I think I recognized a couple of people in the crowd, but I'm not sure. Now, years down the line, it all feels like a nightmare. I can't point to a single thing and say, "Hey, look, it really happened." There are no witnesses, and in the eyes of the law, no crime has been committed. But I know what I lived through that night. That'll stay with me forever. And I know this was violent and ugly and sick, but that email asked me to wait patiently. And maybe that's what saved my life in the end. Maybe I'm still waiting. But for what? Story 1 ends here. Now, let's begin story 2. If you find a painting of your childhood, do this before it ruins your life. That's my childhood home. I wasn't turning down the street I grew up on. I wasn't standing near the large oak in the front yard of the house where I'd lost all my baby teeth. I wasn't sitting inside the kitchen where, on my 15th birthday, I accidentally dropped the cake my mum had baked, which made my family laugh so hard that we shed tears. No, I was holding an oil painting at a Goodwill on the other side of the country. "That can't be possible," my husband said. "It can be possible, Parker, because I'm holding the flipping painting and telling you. 1, language. 2, can I say something without you jumping down my throat?" Parker asked, his voice even. "Yes," I said. "Is there an outside chance that this just looks like your childhood home? I mean, you grew up in the burbs. A lot of cookie-cutter homes. No." I hated to admit he had a point, but as I stared at the house, I couldn't come around to that line of thinking. This was my house. Hell, the roses in the flower beds were the same size and color as I remembered them. No, I mean, I hear you and you're not off base. But, dude, this is my house. I pointed at the porch. I broke that railing trying to do a ballet spin and fell into the bushes. You missed her left feet. Senorita trips a lot. Tried to do a ballet spin. To be fair, I did the spin. I just didn't stick the landing. A minor detail in the world of dance. The landing part, I landed. On the bushes right here, I said, pointing to the painting. Hold on, I have to send a photo to my mum. Does she have old house photos? Of course she does. You've met her, right? I had Parker hold the painting and snapped a few pictures. I sent them over to Mum and asked if she had a photo to compare it to. The message came back a minute later. Oh my God, that's our house. Weird. Another ding brought us a house photo. It looked exactly like the artwork in my hand. I showed Parker. Christ, he said. That's it. Told you. That's wild. Is it a print or a real painting? I ran my hand across the art. There was a palpable texture to the brushstrokes. Sometimes a print may have varnish applied to give the impression of brushstrokes. This wasn't that. I think this is real, but let me check something else, I said, walking toward the wall of ugly lamps. I turned on a lamp and held the painting in front of the bulb. Some artists will draw the picture first in pencil before painting. Sometimes you can see those marks when you hold it up to the light. Staring at the oak tree in the painting, I saw graphite streaks underneath. It's real, I declared. Who painted it? A slash of red paint in the corner mimicked a signature, but Parker and I stared at it as if it were written in Minoan linear. Parker traced the paint with his finger, forwards and backwards. The first name may be George or Jeff, I think. George, look at how it flows. He retraced the letters, and it made sense to me. Okay, what's the last name? Hell, if I know. I tried Parker's finger tracing. It felt like I was tracing a line drawing by someone with too much caffeine in their system. These didn't seem like actual letters. Might be Moffat, a soft voice said. From behind us, we turned and saw that a Goodwill employee had materialized. She was a short, frail-looking elderly woman with a hairstyle that resembled a well-constructed cumulus cloud in both color and shape. Moffat, I said. I think that's an M, she said, pointing to two humps. Then it kind of circles into an O and the double F's. The I and the T are somewhat stylized, I think. Artists being artists. I looked, and yeah, it kinda looked like Moffat. I can see it. George, Moffat, you think? I do. Beautiful piece. Don't you think? Yes, I said. It looks exactly like the house I grew up in. I showed her the photo my mum sent. How strange, right? I grew up across the country. Why is this even here? When I was younger, there was a company that would paint your home for you. Painters. Parker deadpanned. Ignore him, I said. He doesn't know how to act in public. She laughed. I understand. I have one just like him at home. That's why he's at home. I laughed. You're teaching and I'm taking notes, ma'am. Anyway, they would come paint portraits of your house. It was a thing for a few years. This looks like one of those. There may be a company name on the back under the frame. I flipped the painting over and gingerly removed the frame. Sure enough, there was a small faded sticker that read Cozy Home Portraits Company. There wasn't any other information. I made an impressed noise. Look at that. Have a jumping off point to find out what this is all about. Thank you so much, Marge. Marge, thank you. Sorry again for this guy. Marge, please forgive me. You're a gentlewoman and a scholar. Marge leaned into him and nodded at me. You're punching above your weight with her, kiddo. Keep her happy. Parker laughed, wrapped his arm round my hip, and pulled me in for a hug. Marge, That's the best advice I've ever received from a goodwill employee. If only your barber had given you good advice. You could have avoided that haircut. I burst out laughing. Parker did too. Marge, I hope to grow up to be just like you. You found a guy who can take a joke. That's a start. You guys want to get that, or still debating? I looked at Parker and he nodded. How can we not get this, even if it's just for the story? Marge smiled. See, you can learn. Come on, kids, I'll ring you up. When I got home, I immediately began researching the Cozy Home Portraits company. I had a hard time finding anything. Most of the search results were links to people on Reddit asking the same questions. Apparently, there were a lot of folks, like me, who were surprised to find their childhood homes immortalized on canvas. One commenter said something that stuck with me. Parker, listen to this, I said, reading the post. My mum says she remembers someone approaching her and asking if they could take a photo so they could paint the house later. She told them no at first, but they said they'd do it for no cost. Mum agreed and assumed she'd get the painting at some point, but she never heard from the company again. What's the next commenter say? This sounds fake, I read. Kind of a dickish response. No, it's Reddit, he said, shrugging. Maybe they just used the houses for inspiration and sold the paintings. 2 commercial houses for reproductions. Then why bother involving the homeowners at all? Maybe to assuage their worries of someone standing outside their home snapping photos of their house, Parker suggested. I mean, anyone could take a photo of our house, and I'd have no idea, unless I saw them do it. True, it's weird, I'll grant you, but I think I'm on the right track. Commercial art, Americana stuff, that was to be it. He may have been onto something, but that answer didn't feel right. I couldn't work out the logic. If this company had been around for a while and painted portraits of homes all across the country for commercial sale, why wasn't there any record of them? No stories online, no official business records, no known CEO or lists of artists or anyone. Hell, even searching for the name George Moffat didn't yield results. My mind told me there was something off about this. A sense of dread loomed over the whole thing. I let it marinate all day to see if I'd reconsider. Shocking no one, I didn't. I told Parker as much as we got ready for bed. Asterisk, asterisk, you're reacting that way because of what's happening in the world right now. Parker said, yawning. There are real evil people out there, but they aren't painting pictures. Hitler painted pictures, I said. He gave me a deadpan stare. You know what I mean. I just can't let it go. It's odd that it was done at all. Odd that it traveled all the way out here. Odd that I found it. Odd stacked on odd, stack on odd. Turtles all the way down. What? I said, crinkling up my face. What do turtles have to do with anything? He laughed. Nothing. Just a dumb expression. He yawned again. Why is this bothering you so much? Some random company painted and sold pictures of my childhood house with no one knowing about it. It's odd, he said with a smile. Very. It's just not sitting right with me. Parker yawned for a 3rd time. My melatonin is kicking in here. Get some rest and see how you feel in the morning. Maybe call your mum, see if she has a story to tell. She might know something. He didn't wait for my response. Instead, he rolled over, shut off the lamp, and turned on our sound machine. As digital thunderstorms rolled into our bedroom, I lay down on my pillows, but didn't fall asleep. This whole thing smothered my thoughts as much as my weighted blanket did my body. I would call Mum tomorrow. See what she knew. If anything, I heard light snores coming from Parker's direction and sighed. That man could fall asleep even if the house were on fire. I flipped on YouTube, found something to help me sleep, and closed my eyes, or would have, if I hadn't seen our front porch light turn on. A cold touched my brain and froze the rest of my body. The light going off didn't mean a prowler was trying to jimmy open our lock. It could be a bug flying too close to the sensor or a sleepwalking squirrel. Improbable, sure, but they were better than the alternative. I didn't want to wake Parker, but I also wasn't keen on investigating alone. While I was debating getting out of bed, I heard a noise in the kitchen that made the decision easy. I elbowed Parker. "What?" he asked, his voice a blend of exhaustion and annoyance. "Our front porch light went off," I whispered. "Raccoons tripping the light," he said. "Not worth waking me." "I know, but I heard someone in the kitchen." His eyes zinged open. In a flash, he was on his feet and grabbed the bat we kept near the bed. He quietly inched along the wall until he got to the bedroom doorway. He peeked out and scanned the room before turning back to me and shrugging. Pointed to the kitchen again before popping up and joining him on the wall. Parker wasn't pleased. He told me, not in words but vigorous nods, to go back to the bed and wait. I didn't. He gave in, and we made our way out of the bedroom. Me walking directly behind him like some backwards waltz. I saw nothing that went. Double after Parker slammed his hand on the switch, flooding the room with light and damn near blinding me in the process. I let out a painful yelp and covered my eyes to adjust. I heard Parker sigh. "We're good," he said. "Nothing in here." "You gotta tell me before you do that," I said, finally checking out the room. Everything initially looked washed out. "I'm nearly blind." "I wanted the element of surprise," Parker said. "You achieved it," I said. "All I see now are a bunch of little diamonds everywhere." He walked into the kitchen. "Your intruder is nothing more than a fallen salt shaker," he said, holding up the culprit. "Oh, like I said, a raccoon probably tripped the light. I'm going back to sleep. You should, too." He walked past me, patted my ass, and headed back to bed. I was about to join him when my eyes landed on the painting. I walked over to it and stared. In the store, looking at it had flooded my emotions with joy and happiness. But now, none of that unease seeped into my blood and rushed through my body. Something was different about the painting. I couldn't put my finger on what had changed, but I knew something had. It was giving me chills. I grabbed a nearby napkin and draped it over the artwork like a coroner covering a dead body. My thinking was that if there was something supernatural about this thing, the napkin would keep it at bay. Dumb, I know, but it made sense at the time. I couldn't believe that picture. That's so wild. Mum was too chipper for this early in the morning. She always was, though a real rise with the early bird kind of gal. That wasn't me. I still had bedhead as I sipped my cup of coffee. Parker, another early riser, cooked breakfast. I thought so too. Someone told me a company used to go around and paint pictures of homes. They'd ask the homeowners beforehand. Any memory of that? Not that I can remember. Back then, it was mostly your father who spoke with salesmen. I found them unseemly. I can't imagine he'd allow someone to do that. Rest his soul. Yeah. Dad was pretty private. We had a neighbor who was a painter, though. Carl, no, that wasn't it. Craig. Oh, goddamn, my ancient brain. Bonnie, don't get old. It's hell. I'm trying not to. It's why I do my nightly skincare routine. It's intense, Parker added with a smirk. What was his name? It's been years since I thought of him. Craig Maurice. Something like that. He didn't live near us for long. Dad didn't like him at all. Why? Craig was the human equivalent of a popcorn kernel stuck in your teeth. Irritating. He rubbed your father the wrong way. I don't remember Dad talking about him. He didn't around you, but with me, hoo boy. Craig used to walk by the house all the time, always whistling Pop Goes the Weasel for some reason. He'd stand too close when he talked to you. He'd leer at me when I was outside hanging laundry on the line. He'd never get the hint that I wanted to be left alone, even though I was always short with him, especially after he said that you were growing up nicely. Gross, I said. I was 10, like I said. He was a weirdo. But, again, most artiste types are, I suppose. Remember your Uncle Walter made those ghastly papier-mâché skulls. They used to be all over his house. Was like walking into some cannibal's hut whenever we'd go over there. But he was good at making them. Who'd want them is another thing altogether. He gave us one, and I made your dad keep it in a bag in the garage. Don't bring that ghoulish shit in my house. As my mum rambled about skull shapes like a Victorian phrenologist, a thought came to me. I looked down at the painting and traced the painter's name. Mom, could his name have been Craig Moffat? Parker looked over at me. I nodded down at the painting and traced what I thought the letters were with my finger. He hit his forehead with the spatula and shook his head. Oh my God, yes, that was it. Craig Moffat. God, what a blast from the past. He really was a weird little freak of a man, my mum said, laughing. He used to wear these tiny little shorts, and he did not have the legs for it. Looked like two toothpicks stuck in an orange. Mum droned on a little longer, but provided nothing of substance beyond Craig Moffat's horrid legs. But she'd given me some new information, the artist's real name. As soon as I hung up, I grabbed my laptop. Craig Moffat, not George, Craig. I see it now, Parker said. We should have never trusted Marge. Didn't like the cut of her jib. Babe, her jib was flawless, I said, turning to the painting. Her eyes, not so much. To be fair, we all agreed it was George Moffat. There's Craig Moffat. I turned the computer round and showed a web page dedicated to his art. Parker leaned down to get a closer look. His legs do look like toothpicks stuck in an orange. Rolling my eyes, I turned the laptop back to me and clicked on the man's About Me page. It was illuminating. Craig had quite the little career. He'd worked for a few newspaper outlets, few magazines, some ad campaigns. His stuff was good. There was a list of known works. There are a few house paintings listed here. It has to be him. Has anyone mentioned how odd this is? Parker said with a sly smile. It's catching on. Maybe he saw your home as a happy family home and wanted to capture it for that company. Is there a contact page? There is, I yelped. I read the page out loud. If you have questions about Craig or his work, please feel free to reach out here. I said, that's great. You can email him and ask directly. MoffatEstate@moffatart.com, I read. Shit, he's dead. That shouldn't matter. Maybe the guy who runs the estate can answer your questions. I nodded. It was worth a shot. I started composing a message, and Parker went back to breakfast. I glanced at the artwork on the table next to me. Something about it picked at my brain. Hey, I meant to ask, have you been watching professional wiffle ball games on our YouTube? Oh yeah, I've started turning on games after your melatonin kicks in. Puts me right out. Huh. Are you a wiffle ball fan? No, I said, laughing. I just happened across it one night, and I fell asleep like 10 minutes into a game. It's better than Ocean Waves. Which game was it? Rhinos against the Storks. Oh man, those two teams hate each other. Storks have won the last 3 series behind Dustin Braddock's nasty banana ball. I stopped speaking because I could feel Parker's smug smirk on his face. I looked up and caught it with my own eyes. Not a fan. What the hell is a banana? Ball. Ping. They emailed back already, I said. What the hell? Maybe there isn't a lot going on at the Moffat estate. Hi, Craig Moffat was my father. He did several pieces of local homes during that era. I would love to discuss this with you. Can we set up a call? So there clearly isn't a lot going on at the Moffat estate, Parker said. I'm going to say yes. I think I have to, if for no other reason than my own sanity. Go for it. I can be there. For the call if you need me. So I set up a call with the estate for later that day. Hopefully, there'd be some information that I could use to stop the itch in my brain. Parker served me breakfast before he got ready to head out to the gym. You never told me what a banana ball is, he said, placing the plate in front of me. It's a sidearm slurve, a strikeout pitch, nearly unhittable if Braddock is on his game. Parker gave me a quizzical look. I sighed, not a fan. After Parker had left for the gym, I went back over to the painting. It was still sitting in the last place I had left it. Still had the napkin over it. The bad vibes I felt earlier were still there. In fact, they'd grown worse. I didn't even want this thing in my house anymore, covered or not, despite my misgivings. I pulled the napkin off the painting and gave it a once-over. I felt my stomach gurgle and my throat went dry. Looking at this now literally caused physical pain. It didn't make sense. Where's the front door? I suddenly asked myself out loud. The front door of the house was gone, blacked out like an actor with perfect teeth, coloring in one to look sufficiently destitute for a role. I scraped where the door had been with my thumb. No fresh paint. It was like it had always been that way, but it hadn't. I checked the photo. I sent to my mum to confirm. There was a creak on the basement stairs. There very much shouldn't have been a creak on the basement stairs. The basement was home to nothing but dust, Christmas decorations, and my ugly childhood couches we didn't have the heart to throw away. Since none of those things can walk, this made no sense. I tiptoed to the knife block and pulled out a butcher. Knife, with my phone in my free hand, I used my nimble thumb to unlock it. I was ready to dial 911, but as I stared at my reflection in the knife blade, I questioned whether I was prepared to stick it into another person. I wouldn't know that until it came to that moment. I very much prayed that wouldn't happen. Another creak near the top of the stairs now. It was getting closer. I flexed the grip on the knife. I tried to control my breathing, but couldn't. Turns out all that woo-woo TikTok relaxation breathing stuff was just bullshit. My heart was thumping like an angry jazz drummer's long-awaited solo. I felt sweat drip down my neck. Something flickered on the painting. It momentarily took my eyes off the basement door. Like last night, I initially registered nothing different than I noticed, through the window of the living room, it looked like someone had turned on a light or lit a fire. Splotches of yellow and orange paint filled the window frame. The jingling of the basement door handle snapped me out of my trance. My palms were sweaty. My legs swayed like bamboo in a strong breeze. I gathered all my remaining strength and yelled out, "Hey, Esty, stay away from me." I wanted to say more, but overwhelming fear shut me up. The jiggling stopped. Relief. My hectoring worked. ... For about 2 seconds, the basement door cracked open. There was a ghostly pale face staring back at me. That was when my brain firmly decided whether I was a fight or flight kind of gal. I was flight. Fuck this. I dropped the knife, which clattered on the tile like that drummer hitting the hi-hat, and sprinted toward my front door. I yelled gibberish the entire time, tears streaming down my face, and blasted out of the door. My fingers hit send on the call, and seconds later, an annoyingly even-keeled 911 operator connected me with the police. Parker returned home before the police arrived. He found me sitting inside my locked car. Before he could crack a joke, he caught sight of my face. I'd been crying and could feel how puffy my eyes were. Consternation crossed his face. I rolled the window down. "Get in the car," he did. I explained everything to him. He was astonished. He was confused. He grabbed my hand and held it steady as I went over everything, pausing occasionally to sob like a child with a skinned knee. When I was done, he asked why I didn't leave right away. "Who do you think you are, Rambo?" I laughed. I need that. For a few seconds, I was, then I wasn't. I wasn't even Gizmo pretending to be Rambo. He gave my arm a loving squeeze. "If it'll help you calm down, we can watch some pro wiffle ball tonight. I hear the rhinos are playing the turkeys." "Storks," I said, "but they are actually playing the habaneros tonight. Gil Faust is looking to debut his chili ball pitch." He leaned in and kissed my forehead. "But you're not a fan." "I'm not." A knock on the window caused me to scream. The cops had arrived. If they were curious why we were sitting in our car, they kept it to themselves. I relayed what happened, and they said they'd go into the basement and check it out. 15 minutes later, they came walking out. "We didn't see anyone down there," the cop said, "but, to be fair to you, your basement gave me the heebie-jeebies." "Great," I said. "I know it's not what you wanted to hear, but it's the truth. On the plus side, I haven't seen that love seat since I was a kid. Want it? It's better left to the past. You two have a nice day." We watched them leave. Parker turned to me. "You okay?" "No, and I won't be until I go into the basement myself." "What? Why?" I can't explain. Something is drawing me there. It sounds crazy, I know, but I feel it in my bones." Parker saw the determined look in my eyes. This was going to happen. Had to happen. He sighed. "Want me to go in first?" "Yes," I said. "Are you actually going to wait for me to go in, or follow right behind me?" We both know the answer to that. Resuming our reverse waltz, we went back into the house. Once in the kitchen, we stopped near the painting. Parker looked over and agreed that there were changes. We turned our attention to the closed basement door. Parker put his hand on the handle. "We don't have to go down here, Beth," he said. "The cops didn't find anyone alive. If there's a ghost in this house, I need to know. If we know, we can remove it. How?" "I'm still working on that part," I said. "But I need to know for certain. I won't feel safe otherwise." I'm inclined to just say yes and move on. Something altered the painting already. Who the hell did that? "One issue at a time," I said. He knew he couldn't talk his way out of this. He knew I needed this, and he loved me enough to see it through to the end, even though he was petrified. 2. The skin on his arm had goosebumps as soon as we walked into the kitchen. It felt like Braille to me now, and the only thing it said was, "Let's not do this." But that feeling in my brain, the one drawing me down there, wouldn't leave. It was stronger now that we were in the home. Something was loose in my house. I knew it in my heart. Whatever it was, I needed to keep it from roosting in my new home. Let the ghosts live in the past. Leave my future alone. Parker gripped the handle, sighed so loudly it was heard 2 towns over, and opened the door. The stairs led down into the dark of the basement. The floor around the landing was the only thing visible. In the abstract, it wasn't anything right now, though. Horrifying, Parker found the light switch, illuminating the rest of the space. So far, so good. We took our time walking down the stairs, creaking along the wooden one step at a time. Maybe it had the same effect on the ghost that hearing creaking steps did on me. Perhaps the phantom was hiding, holding a ghost knife and deciding if it was going to play Ghost Rambo or just fearfully disappear into the walls. The house in the painting had a basement too, I whispered. When I was a kid, I hated going down there. Any time of day just didn't feel natural, you know. Are you trying to get me to stop doing this? Sorry, I'm rambling, I said. One kept right on rambling, though. What bothered me wasn't so much going down there. What scared me was the trip. Back up, turning your back on the dark. I used to walk backwards up the stairs. We can try that in a few minutes, Parker whispered back. Any other ghost stories you want to share before we hit the landing? Sorry, I said. It just popped into my mind. I haven't thought about that fear in years. Since we moved away from there, actually. That's not comforting. We got to the bottom and took a look around. Everything looked normal. No surprises. Just our old, ugly furniture and friendly Santa decorations, smiling and giving us a frozen wave. I thought about turning and heading back up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was supposed to be down here. I was also positive Parker would be furious if I went darting up the stairs without him. Leaving him alone in Spook Central might be grounds for divorce. We headed over to the furniture. There was a layer of dust on everything. I smacked the pillow, sending it flying into the air. I coughed and sneezed, instantly regretting my actions. Parker's withering glare told me he wasn't fond of my actions either. Sorry, I don't see anything out of the ordinary here, do you? No, I said. It looks like it always does. Feeling gone. Can we go back upstairs now? Before I could answer, we heard the familiar chime from our security system, followed by the calm, reassuring voice informing us that our front door was open. What the fuck? I said. She, Parker responded, his finger to his lips. He pointed up to the ceiling. We cocked our ears and concentrated. For about 20 seconds, there was nothing. Silence. It didn't last. C-R-E-A-A-A-K. The floorboards wheezed as someone took slow, deliberate steps above us. You could hear the footfalls as they moved from the front door to the hallway. Trembling, Parker pointed up at the ceiling. You could physically see the floor bow ever so slightly from the person's weight. I didn't even think that was possible. W, what do we do? I whispered. I don't know, Parker said. Maybe they'll leave. A second later, we were cloaked in total darkness. All the power in the house had gone out. The only light came from the sunlight, streaming in from the open door at the top of the stairs. It wasn't much, but it was a beacon. Our lighthouse, our way home. Let's, is all I was able to say. Someone upstairs ran down the hall, through the kitchen, and to the basement door. They slammed it shut, plunging us into instant midnight. Asterisk, asterisk, I wanted to scream, to yell so loud it'd shake the heavens. But I couldn't. My body physically couldn't make that happen. It'd give away our location. I clutched Parker's shirt so hard I was afraid I'd rip it right off him. If it bothered him, he didn't say. "This sucks," Parker mumbled. Understatement of the goddamn century. Ho ho ho, Merry Christmas. One of our Santa decorations started going off. I nearly peed myself at Santa's sudden arrival. I imagined it would have been the same response I would have had if I had seen him as a kid. Crease. Kringle was soon joined by all of our Christmas decorations going off at once. Dozens of laughing Santas, lights flickering off and on, inflatables rising like zombified plastic bags. The noise was deafening, but strangely festive. The strobing lights in the pitch black caused afterimages to dance in my rods and cones. I slammed them shut and silently prayed for this all to end. Someone must have heard, because as quickly as they'd come to life, they stopped. We stood in the dark, not breathing, not moving. Neither of us knew what to do. Nothing in my life had prepared me for this. I couldn't shake the idea that whatever was coming would be worse than what we'd already experienced. There was a creaking again and a sudden rushing of blinding sunlight from the top of the stairs. Someone had opened the door. Before we could get a glimpse, the door slammed shut and something sprinted down the no-dark stairs. I pulled Parker back onto the old love seat. We sat on the edge and kept our heads on a swivel, even though the basement was too dark to see our own hands. We weren't alone anymore. As my fingertips grazed the couch, I realized something. These were originally my parents. My parents got them when I was living in the house from the painting. They were a physical connection between the past and now. Are these what caused my sudden desire to come to the basement? Was I being manipulated by this thing? Could I trust myself at all? That dread feeling I'd had since I brought the painting into our house intensified. I felt it in my bones, deeper even, my aura, my soul. I leaned into Parker's ear and whispered an apology. He didn't vocalize a response, but squeezed my arm. I squeezed back. My body shook and I couldn't get myself to stop. I wanted to run for the stairs, but that old fear came rushing back. I knew if I ran up those stairs, it'd follow behind me. Something whooshed by us. My hair flowed with it, trailing behind whatever had sprinted past. I nervously dug my fingers into the fabric. We heard the sound of some liquid splattering on the floor across from us. Water, no, heavier than water. A sound that made my guts twist soon joined the drips and splashes. Someone started whistling a familiar tune. Pop goes the weasel. The Christmas decorations flickered on and shut off. In the brief flash of light, we could make out a figure standing across from us, Craig Moffat. "Pop," he screamed as the light strobed. "Goes." He screamed again, a foot closer this time. Another foot closer, almost directly in front of us now. The lights flickered again, and his face was right next to mine. A sinister smile as he slowly whispered, "Weasel." I felt something wet and slimy rub against my cheek. Parker stood and, surprisingly, swung at Ghost Craig. It didn't find the ghoul, and, as the darkness returned, his fist only found the arm of the couch. I heard his knuckles crack and him swear in pain. My ears were the only thing working at that moment. That I sat frozen, tears streaming down my face. The lights in the house came back on, and I screamed. On the wall across from us, where we had heard the water, the painting was hanging. Only, it wasn't the old house. It was the current house. All the windows and doors were filled with flames. There were two figures on the front lawn. Parker and I, we were both dead. Standing behind our oak tree, watching it all, was Craig Moffat. Parker, let's go. I didn't have to tell him twice. We broke for the stairs and took them 3 at a time until we reached the top. I grabbed the handle and shoved my shoulder into the door, expecting it to hold firm. It didn't. Parker and I spilled onto our kitchen floor. I scrambled up and practically yanked Parker into the kitchen. I was about to slam the door when I saw Craig Moffat standing at the bottom of the stairs. We locked eyes. My mind flew back to my childhood, a memory stored deep in the folds of my brain. I was sitting on our porch reading a book and heard that. Damn whistling, Craig Moffat. A Polaroid camera in his hands and portrait photos on his mind. I was afraid he'd stop and take a picture of me. I was right. Even now, I could hear the heavy clunk of the shutter and the worry of the processing photo as it slid out. He shook it, and as the fog of war slowly dissipated on the photo, he smiled. This way, I won't forget you. I slammed the door shut and urged Parker to grab the car keys. He turned the corner to do so when I heard him sharply yelp in surprise, followed by the squeak of his sneakers on the hardwood and his arse hitting the ground. I ran to him, expecting to see Craig, but was stunned by the sight of a living man, surrounded by 2 yellow hulks outside my front door. Once my brain processed the information, it was clear those men were wearing biohazard suits. It still didn't answer why men in biohazard suits were outside my door, but it cleared up that there were. The suitless man in the middle, though, had a more than striking resemblance to the ghost I'd just seen in my basement. Only younger, fuller, fleshy. Sorry to startle you both, the man said, raising his hands in peace. You contacted us about a painting you found. I'm David Moffat. Craig was my father. You've got to be shitting me. We were supposed to talk on the phone, I said. Yes, but we were worried things might have progressed too much by then. Tell me, has the door in the painting disappeared yet? How did David turn to his men? Call for the extraction team. Turning back to us, he urgently asked, where's the painting? The basement, I said, but it looks different now. What in hell is going on? Parker asked. Different. Would you say violently different? Our dead bodies on the lawn and the place ablaze. Violently different. He nervously turned to where the biohazard-suited men had gone. The experienced extraction team. Parker stood and held my hand. We looked at each other and back at David Moffat. We both cracked. Small smiles that turned into chuckles, that turned into a laughing fit. I read somewhere that mental breaks can start like this. Whatever, I leaned in. David Moffat, the son of your childhood painter, neighbor Craig Moffat, himself a ghost that nearly killed us, is standing in our fucking veranda, Parker said, barely able to get the words out between screeching. Laughter. I mean, what the fuck is this life? Seconds later, a team of armed men in hazmat suits carrying unknown machinery rushed in and headed for the basement. We heard one of them scream, and then the sounds of mechanical engines warming up. David nodded toward the front door. We should go outside. We did. What the hell else were we going to do? Once we were outside, David pulled out a pack of cigarettes and offered us one. We both declined. David indulged and nodded back at the house. This is the experienced team. What's going on? I asked. Asterisk, I'm going to level with you. What I'm about to say is pretty weird. I like to say weird to people. sets the right tone, sir, on what is easily the weirdest day in not only my and my wife's life, but I'd argue humanity's life. Nothing you can say will top what we've already been through, Parker said. I mean, I just discovered my wife watches professional wiffle ball, for God's sake. Not a fan, I mumbled. Dad was a strange man, lots of demons. When he could keep them at bay, he did great work. But that was never for long. Around the time when you were a kid, he got deep into the occult. It was a faddish passing fancy at first, but soon he found a deeper meaning in it. It consumed him. Around this time, well, he conjured a demon. I think I'm having a stroke. He made a deal. We don't exactly know the details, but what we do know is that Dad agreed to start a company that would paint portraits of people's homes. The twist was that the homes he picked would become targets for the demon. Naturally, Parker said, because, why not? He'd take a photo of the home and give it to the demon. The demon would curse it and insert it into the canvases of my dad's paintings. These photos would be a connection between the subjects in the art and the demon itself. The pull got stronger when the artwork found its way back to the subjects. Then, he trailed off. Meet each other, I said. In a manner of speaking, yes. So many questions bounced around my brain. This all sounded so outlandish, and yet, the memory of the photo came back to me. This way, I won't forget you, I said out loud, confused. Parker looked at me. What? We don't know how many paintings Dad did during this time, but we've recovered. 65 in locations from New York to California. The people selected seemed to be random, except for you. Why me? My guess. You were neighbors, and, well, my dad really didn't like your dad. The feeling was mutual. Just then, the extraction team came rushing out. One was limping. The machines they brought looked broken, but the lights were still on. One of them had the painting in a biocontainment bag. It was smoking. The experienced team, David said, ashing out his smoke on the bottom of his shoe and pocketing the butt. Thank you for letting us help rid you of this menace. The work is exhausting, but my family has to atone for Craig's wicked actions. David nodded and turned to leave. I reached out and grabbed his shoulder. Wait, that's it. We're free, just like that. Just like that, he said, turning to leave. He stopped and spun on his heels. Unless you have something from the old house in your new house, then you kinda sorta leave a back door for the demon to return. So, if you do, I suggest destroying it. He tipped his cap and left Doc Parker and I locked eyes. The fucking love seat, we said at the same time. My back hurt just thinking about hauling it up those narrow stairs. Later that night, we torched the sofa in a makeshift fire pit in our backyard. We ate pizza and watched the flames consume the potentially demonic couch. Can't imagine that's a sentence that's been said a lot in history. As we did, relief filled my heart. The dread was gone. I looked over at Parker and smiled. I think we can put to bed the argument about who had the weirder childhood, Park, he laughed. Yeah, summers with my Amish family can't compete with demons. His phone buzzed. He looked down at the notification with concern. I felt my stomach twist. Please tell me it's good news. The Rhinos Habaneros game is about to start. I set a reminder. Wanna watch? I touched my heart and felt pure happiness surge through me. Tears. Grabbing his free hand, I held it tight and gave it a big squeeze. I have something to confess, I said. I think I'm a legitimate fan of professional wiffle ball. I know, babe, I know. We sat together, letting the crackling of a burning demon couch and the crack of a wiffle ball bat fill the night air. I snuggled into Parker's shoulder. It was warm, inviting, home, and not one haunted by an angry ghost. How did one girl get so lucky? Story 2 ends here. Now, we drift into Story 3. I'm a police detective, and I'm dealing with the weirdest case yet. Hello, Internet. I'm not saying my real name, but for simplicity, you can call me Oz. I'm going here because you guys seem pretty accustomed to this kind of shit, being a police. Detective isn't usually too chaotic, just dealing with legal nonsense, searching houses, and getting roughed up by drug dealers. Occasionally, I'll run into a drug cartel and have to fight for my life, but that usually ends as soon as reinforcements show up. But all that changed when I was in California, investigating a case in which a gas station owner alleged that he was harassed and nearly attacked by a strange man wearing a blank mask, who demanded money from him. Not wanting trouble, the cashier gave him all he had in the register, but hid a bit of it to ensure the shop wasn't completely bereft of money. The robber didn't leave after seemingly emptying the store's earnings. Instead, he paced around, muttering to himself, finally leaving just moments before the sound of police sirens filled the air. What kind of lead did we have? Barely any, but the man did come and go by car, so we followed that trail to its end, and I followed that lead as best I could. I tracked his movements through the traffic cameras around town, and he parked near a park entrance before vanishing, likely to change out of his work clothes. I found the car where he left it and took it to the station with me. Forensics and I did a full fucking peel of that car, and not a single fingerprint anywhere. That car was, as the dealership explained to me, stolen, and the only fingerprints we could find were confirmed to belong to the young female owner, who was pulled out of it and knocked unconscious by an unknown assailant. All right. That sucks, but I'm a detective. I don't give up. So I cast my detective's magnifying glass over California, and I scrutinized for anything else to come up regarding the case. Eventually, something happened, but it wasn't a witness, a tip, or anything remotely related to my career as a police detective. No, it was a personal experience. At some point around 11 p.m. a few days ago, I was on a late-night walk when I witnessed something strange. A blur of a man entering an alleyway, and following him was a lean woman wearing a white, featureless mask. Suddenly, the details of that case that had occurred weeks ago came racing back into my mind. I turned off my songs and quickly gave quiet pursuit, but the alley was dark, and I could barely even see my hands in this rural place. So I turned on my flashlight and I screamed. Well, I've seen a lot of shit as a police detective, so it wasn't the kind of shrill scream you would get from a woman or horror movie survivor, but it was more like a very loud, deep gasp. I saw a writhing, shuddering man on the verge of death, being held down by two muscular men. One I recognized as that man in the gas station, but the other seemed slightly different. 3 women joined them. One was a younger woman I almost overlooked. Another appeared, older, and the leader of the group had curly hair. She carried a bloodied cleaver at her side, wore delicate white gloves, and was methodically removing the dying man's insides one by one. All of them wore identical, expressionless masks, as she clutched the putrid viscera in her grip. I heard something. For most of this paralyzing encounter, none of them had made a sound, save for the hoarse but hushed breathing from the 2 men restraining the victim. But now that the man's life had left him completely, the leader gently put her gut-filled hands in the position of prayer and began to whisper something. now that they didn't need to prevent his escape. The two men put down their victim and turned to me. Making eye contact with those psychopaths was the push my body finally needed, and I reached for my gun. The bigger of the two picked up a chunk of the road and chucked it at me, and I narrowly dodged being knocked unconscious in front of these fiends when they saw their ploy didn't work. They rushed me. It was a short alleyway, and with only a few seconds left to react. I frantically tried to reload my gun, which I somehow left magazine-less, but I had almost no time to watch myself, and I ended up spilling brass all over the floor. So in an instant's thinking, I managed to load 2 bullets into my mag and loaded. Bang, bang. I shot blindly, but accuracy be damned. They were almost upon me. Both shots hit. One of them was shot in the intestines, maybe even his lung, and he fell forward, wobbling on his knees like a scarecrow in a thunderstorm. The other was hit in the knee and fell to the ground before grabbing me by the ankle and trying to stop me from getting away. But a kick in his mask seemed to disorientate him, allowing me to get free and start running, but not before taking a single picture of the entire group and their latest victim. I turned around and ran as fast as I could. But this was a rural town, and few places were open to visitors at this time. But I saw my salvation, a nearby porta potty that was built much more sturdy than your typical dumper. So I ran directly toward it and locked myself inside. Only then did I call dispatch to request an ambulance and police, though it was likely too late for the man in question. We have to do that for legal reasons. At first, I thought that they had chosen not to pursue me for whatever reason. That was until I heard a slam as the plastic of the porta potty was rammed against by a familiar shoulder. I had no idea what was wrong with these people. They were pounding on the plastic with a wild intensity that reminded me of a clumsy yet rabid and dangerous animal. Through the semi-transparent walls of the outhouse I was hiding in, I could see everything, the countless hands of my attackers, their shadows engulfing my small refuge, and every desperate attempt they made to break in. But the scariest part wasn't even this mob's animalistic grunting and hissing. It was what their leaders said to me from inside that thin wall of safety. Hehehe ... Look what you've gotten yourself into. Everything came to a halt as soon as the police showed up. Here I was, looking like a fucking maniac, screaming about homeless psychos trying to kill me, locked inside of a porta potty alone. They did not find any body, no fingerprints, no camera footage. The only sign this ever happened to me was that picture and the damage dealt to that John. But you and I both know that chemical toilets being run down is a given, not a possibility. I'm feeling desperate, resorting to this place and asking strangers online for help. But could you give me a hint here? What were those people? It's probably gang, cult activity of some kind. But I'm completely stumped as to what I'm supposed to do here. Before wrapping this up, I have an unusual lead to share. About 2 years ago, a church somewhere in California was burned to the ground by an unknown arsonist. Casualties were few, but in the basement, 2 pastors were slain brutally, and on the wall was a message, carved roughly by blade into the brick wall. We are chosen. Story 3 ends here, now. Listen closely to story 4. The House Past Devil's Hollow title. The House Past Devil's Hollow, they told me not to buy the house. Every local I talked to gave me the same look when I mentioned it, a sort of half-pity, half-horror that made me uneasy. One woman at the general store even grabbed my wrist and whispered, "Don't go past Devil's Hollow. That house ain't ever been empty, just unoccupied." But I'm not superstitious. I wanted quiet, country peace. I was a writer, burned out, broken up, and needing solitude more than oxygen. And the place was dirt cheap. 50 acres of woods, a crumbling Victorian farmhouse, and a barn that hadn't seen animals since the 1960s. It was perfect. The first night, I heard footsteps upstairs. That was the beginning. I had only unpacked my mattress and a few boxes, sleeping on the living room floor near the old fireplace. Around midnight, I heard the creak of old wood above me, slow, deliberate, like someone walking from one end of the second floor to the other. I lay still, listening. There was no wind, no animals. I hadn't even turned the power on yet, but something was up there. I told myself it was just the house settling, maybe raccoons. I didn't go upstairs. The next day, I found muddy footprints on the upstairs landing. Bare feet, small, like a child's. The thing is, there were no kids around. I lived a mile off the nearest road, and I hadn't gone upstairs yet. I should have left there that night. The crying started. It was faint at first, a soft whimpering that seemed to come from the walls. It grew louder around 3 a.m., turning into a full, choking sob. I searched the house with a flashlight, every room, even the crawl space beneath the stairs. Nothing, just that sound. Following me always from somewhere IWASN, single quotes, then came the smell. Rotting meat, not just unpleasant, wrong, like something had died in the walls. I tore into the drywall in one of the upstairs bedrooms and found nothing but dust and spiderweb. The stench disappeared when I left the room, only to return stronger each night. Clinging to my clothes like grease, I started dreaming of fire. The dreams were always the same. I'm standing in the front yard, watching the house burn. There's, screaming inside, dozens of voices, overlapping, twisted in agony, but I can't move. I'm frozen, watching the flames curl around the windows like fingers. And then a girl, pale, with blackened hands and hollow eyes, turns to look at me from the upstairs window, always the same, always staring right at me. Then things got worse. One morning, I woke up with my mattress dragged halfway across the floor. Deep scratches ran across the wooden boards beneath, like something had clawed its way under me in the night. My arms were covered in bruises shaped like fingerprints, small ones, like a child's. The house began to hum, a low, vibrating sound that came from the walls and the floors and the ceilings. It filled my bones, made my teeth ache. I started to lose time. Hours would vanish. I'd blink and find myself standing in the upstairs hallway, staring into the mirror that hadn't been there the day before. The mirror showed things that weren't me, it showed me, but different. Grinning when I wasn't, bleeding from the eyes, mouthing words I couldn't hear, couldn't understand. I finally snapped when I found a door that hadn't been there before. It was in the back of the pantry, a narrow wooden door. No knob, no frame, just there. I don't know how long. I stared at it before it opened, and I swear to you, I didn't open it. Inside was a staircase, spiraling down into pitch darkness, and that smell. The rotting meat was pouring out of it. I lit a lantern, I went down. The steps were narrow, slick. The walls pulsed like flesh. It felt like I was walking down the throat of something ancient and alive. At the bottom was a room, stone walls. Bones everywhere, animal, human, small skulls in little piles. And in the middle, a chair. And in the chair, a girl, pale, hollow-eyed hands, blackened with ash. exactly like the one from the dream. She looked up at me, smiled. "You're the last one," she said. "Then we can leave." I ran. I don't remember climbing the stairs or bursting into the daylight. I just remember the sky was wrong, red like blood, clouds swirling like a whirlpool. The house had changed, taller, twisted, watching me. I got in my truck and drove until the gas ran out. Now I live in my car. I haven't slept in 3 days, because every time I close my eyes, I'm in that room again, and the girl is closer. Her black hands reach for me. The house is still there, waiting. It knows me now, and I think, somehow, I never really left. Story 4 ends here, and now we enter the fog of Story 5. I found an abandoned cabin in Minnesota with a strange old man living inside. He told me about a blog that vanished in 2019. I was up north last weekend, hiking around the old trails near a place my uncle used to take me fishing as a kid. Most of the area is overgrown, now long forgotten. I hadn't planned on going off trail, but curiosity got the better of me. Blame the nostalgia, or maybe just boredom, but I ended up about a mile east of where the path stops, trying to follow the sound of running water. That's when I found the cabin. It was barely visible through the brush, just a sagging A-frame buried in birch and pine. The sign nailed crookedly to a tree out front read, "Keith's Cabin, minus 51,120, Redacted Creek." MNI won't post the full address, for reasons that'll become clear. It looked long abandoned. The door was half off its hinges, the window panes cloudy with grime. But before I could peek inside, I heard a cough-deep, wet, and close dot. An old man sat in a rusted lawn chair beside the cabin like he'd been waiting. Big guy, heavy-set, balding, a thick white beard. His flannel shirt looked decades old, and so did he. I froze, unsure if I should apologize or back away, but he just waved me over like I was expected. "You from the city?" He asked. "Kind of," I said. "Just hiking," he grunted. "People don't hike out here anymore, not since they shut it all down." I asked what he meant, and he gestured toward the creek behind the cabin. "Water's bad, real bad. Shouldn't drink it, shouldn't even look at it too long." I didn't know how to respond. He kept talking. Saw a boy once, staring into it. 12, maybe 13. Didn't move for hours. They had to pull him away. Said he wouldn't talk afterward. Just wrote things. Pages and pages. His mama took the blog down after what happened. I asked what blog, and he got quiet. Looked at me real hard and said, "Doesn't matter now. They scrubbed it. 2009, everything vanished. You won't find it." I pressed him for more who the boy was. What was in the blog, but he just shook his head and mumbled something about the water, never forgetting. Then he stood, stiff and slow, and walked back inside the cabin without saying another word. I should have left then, honestly. I should have never gone off trail. But I circled around the back of the cabin and peeked through one of the windows. Inside, the walls were covered in yellowing paper. Dozens, maybe hundreds of handwritten notes, drawings, clippings. Every inch of wall space was filled, like someone was trying to map something out. I couldn't make out all the words, but I saw one phrase over and over again. Not the real Keith. I didn't go in. I didn't want to. Something about the air felt wrong, heavy, like I wasn't alone, even though I only saw the old man. I got out fast and haven't told anyone until now. I don't know what that place was. I don't know who Keith really was, or if he even existed. But if you ever see that name on a map, 51,120 redacted, Greek, do yourself a favor. Don't go looking for it. Story 5 ends here. Now, settle in for story 6. The bird in the birch tree was watching may remember the moment before the full standing on the slick rooftop, yelling down at my idiot cousin, laughing too hard, not watching my step. Then, a sharp twist, the sky cartwheeling, the deafening silence between impact and blackness. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a sunlit bed beneath an open window. A cool breeze carried the scent of lilacs. My legs didn't hurt. My head was clear. I was in a room I recognized without knowing how cozy, warm, filled with sunlight and the quiet murmur of morning. A woman was humming softly in the kitchen. Her name, I would later learn, was Claire, my wife. The days unfolded with an impossible softness. We had a small house tucked near the woods. I painted for a living, apparently portraits mostly, and Claire made jewelry from sea glass and copper wire. It was a life of warm tea, shared glances, and laughter over burned dinners. We never argued. There was no tension, just peace. A few weeks in, I noticed the bird, a robin, bright red chest, dull grey wings, perched always on the same branch of the birch tree outside the kitchen window. Every morning, as we ate breakfast, it sat there, watching Dot. At first, I thought nothing of it, but after weeks, months, it was always there, same branch, same angle, same silent stare. It never sang, never twitched, never even blinked. I pointed it out to Claire once. "Funny," I said, "that bird never moves." She turned, looked out the window, smiled. What bird? That was the first time I felt the wrongness under my skin. I tried to forget it. I buried myself in our life. I made love to Claire with an ache in my chest. I memorized the lines of her face, terrified that if I blinked too long, she'd vanish. But the bird, it was always there, watching, waiting. One night I dreamed of falling again, but this time I landed in the bird's open beak. I woke up screaming. I stopped painting. I stopped eating. I started staring back. I watched that bird for hours, days. Its head would slightly twitch if I looked away for even a second, but never when I was watching, like it knew. Like it was checking whether I'd figured it out. The rest of the world began to unravel, first slowly, then all at once. The clouds outside repeated patterns. Claire said things she had said before, word for word, with the same intonation. I opened our fridge once and saw it was entirely full of identical, unopened cartons of eggs. I shattered one on the floor. Inside, no yolk, just a perfect, matte black marble. I turned back to the window. The bird was now perched inside the house. It stared at me from the kitchen counter, completely still, eyes black as oil. Claire didn't see it. I asked her, sobbing, "Why can't you see it?" She just cupped my face and whispered, "You're scaring me." And then I understood. The bird wasn't watching. It was guarding. I ran. I crashed through the window, into the trees, toward the sound of a voice I couldn't quite place. The world started to fold around me, the leaves becoming static, the dirt beneath my feet smooth as hospital tile. The last thing I remember before waking was the bird, its wings outstretched, its body impossibly long, screaming like metal tearing in half. Then I gasped awake, on a stretcher, covered in blood. My spine a shattered mess of glass and fire. Paramedics shouting, flashlights in my eyes, my cousin crying. I'd fallen 3 stories, been unconscious for 2 minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. That was 2 years ago. They say the brain tries to protect us from trauma, that hallucinations can be comforting, that dreams in near-death states are normal. But I know what I saw, because sometimes, when I'm alone, I hear it again, that metallic shriek. And just once, on a walk through the park, I saw a robin. On a birch tree, it stared at me, and it didn't blink.